Place of Church and Politics Today in India, Theological and Pastoral Reflections. For the third session, we have as moderator Reverend Dr. Chako Chiramel. He is the principal of Mahajubilee B.Ed Training College, Cheruthuruthy. We welcome you, dear Father.
Good afternoon to all of you. Good afternoon. So I hope all of you had a good lunch. Anyway, good afternoon. Anyway, we had 3 sessions over. It was wonderful and powerful, inspiring sessions. And we are waiting for Dr. Tom Father's session and other section, K.M. Francis Sir session, and all other sections also we are waiting. Anyway, I would like to introduce the dignitary, Reverend Dr. Tom Olikarot. He is at present the director of Alpha Institute of Theology and Science, Thalassery. He is the priest of Thalassery Archdiocese. And also I think that theology students, all of us know that we follow a directory or a very big series of books of Alpha series. Still now I refer that for the homilies. It is very inspiring. I think that under the leadership of former director, now the present Bishop of Bishop Pamblani Bishop is the main person. I think that in anyway, Father took his PhD from Rome in Johannine literature, and he takes classes throughout Kerala and also outside Kerala also. Anyway, he just reached here and he is now fresh also. Anyway, in the name of all of you, I welcome Father Tom to address the audience and take the session. Welcome, Father. Thank you.
Reverend Dr. Father Chako Chiramel, the moderator of this session, and dignitaries and my dear friends. In the very beginning, I appreciate the authorities of Marymatha Seminary for arranging this wonderful program for this day and helping us to get certain awareness about current politics, very especially the stand of church in the political scenario of contemporary India. Okay, I am asked to present here the church and politics, challenges and prospects in the Indian situation. India is in particular a microcosm of world religions, since it is the very meeting point of Buddhism, which was born here, Hinduism and Sikhism from the Indian subcontinent, and Islam and Christianity from the Near East. India thus represents in many ways both a model of religious diversity and an example of the problems diversity may cause. At the same time, it remains as the world's largest democratic and secular republic. At the center of this dichotomy stands the struggle for political power, which perhaps more than anything should be convinced of as a trigger to the current problems. The relationship between church and the politics in India is a complex and multifaceted one. On the one hand, the Indian constitution guarantees religious freedom and secularism, which means that the government or the state should not interfere in the affairs of religious institutions. On the other hand, the church has a long history of involvement in social and political activism in India, and many Christian leaders have spoken out on issues such as corruption, poverty, discrimination, and human rights. In recent years, the relationship between church and politics in India has become increasingly strained. This is due to the part to the rise of Hinduism, Hindu nationalism, and political Islam, which have led to the increased scrutiny of Christian activities and allegations of forced conversions. The Indian government has also passed several laws that have been seen as a discriminatory against Christians. Legal discrimination thus become a major crisis which the Indian church has to overcome today. Despite these challenges, the church in India continues to play an important role in the country's social and political life. Christian leaders continue to speak out on issues of injustice, and church-run organizations provide vital services to the poor and marginalized. The church also plays an important role in education and health care, and many Christian schools and hospitals are among the best in the country. The future of the Christian involvement in Indian politics is uncertain. However, the church is likely to continue to play an important role in the country's social and political life, and its influence will likely grow in the years to come. Now, the next point is Christian involvement in politics, a biblical perspective. According to the Bible, the primary mission of the church, and indeed all Christian churches, is to announce the immanency of the kingdom of God and to introduce to the people the values of the kingdom, such as self-giving love, compassion, fraternity, equality, and justice. Hence, the church being the seed and sign of the kingdom of God, her service to the kingdom of God becomes a political activity. Therefore, we cannot think of a politically passive or neutral church. Instead, a church actively engaging herself with the politics and purifying it with the values of the kingdom. The Bible does not provide specific guidelines on how the church should involve itself in politics. However, it does offer principles that can guide the church's engagement in the political sphere. First of all, promoting justice and compassion. The Bible emphasizes the importance of seeking justice for the oppressed, caring for the marginalized, and showing compassion to the needy. In the light of the Bible, the church can advocate for policies that uphold human dignity, protect the vulnerable, and promote social welfare in manifold ways. Being the voice of the voiceless, the church can use its moral authority to speak out against injustice, corruption, and any policies or practices that harm the well-being of the people. It can champion the cause of those who lack representation and advocate for their rights. Fostering unity and peace. The Bible encourages believers to pursue peace and unity. The church can play a role in promoting dialogue, reconciliation, and understanding among diverse communities and religious groups, contributing to the overall harmony of the society. Building up of the nation thus become part of the building up of the kingdom of God on earth. Encouraging ethical leadership. The Bible highlights the importance of ethical leadership and honesty. The church can encourage political leaders to govern with integrity and to prioritize the welfare of the people they serve. Avoiding partisanship. While the church can address political issues, it should avoid allying itself with specific political parties. It should maintain its independence and focus on promoting values and principles rather than endorsing particular candidates or parties. Praying for leaders. The Bible encourages believers to pray for those in authority. The church can pray for political leaders, seeking wisdom and guidance for them in their decision-making process. St. Paul urges that prayers to be made for kings and all who are in high positions, that we may lead a peaceful and quiet life. Paul understood the need for Christian participation in the government. St. Augustine, City of God, offers guidance on this point. Believers are citizens of the city of God, but on this side of eternity, we also belong to the city of man, and therefore must be good citizens of both cities. There are biblical examples of how membership in the earthly city can be leveraged for furthering the reach of the heavenly. Paul appealed to his Roman citizenship is a model of this. History of Indian Church political involvement. The Indian Church has a long history of involvement in Indian politics. During the colonial period, the church has often been seen as a collaborator with the British government. This led to the antipathy among many Indians who saw the church as a foreign institution that was not interested in their welfare. But the actual story was different. The Christians played an active role in the freedom movement and nation building, a role much greater than our demographic strength. After independence, the church continued her involvement in politics, albeit to a lesser extent. The church has been active in social welfare works and has also been involved in lobbying for minority rights. Christian contribution to the nation building. Christianity has played a significant role in building the modern democratic India. Throughout history, Christians have contributed in various ways, including education, healthcare, social reforms, and cultural development. In the 19th century, the church was involved in the Indian independence movement. National leaders such as Mahatma Gandhi, Rajaram Mohan Roy, and Jawaharlal Nehru, who were formed in the profound Christian value system, were instrumental in the fight for Indian independence. Considering the numerical insignificance of the Christians in India, their contribution to the freedom struggle is indeed commendable. Christianity molded the mind of men, women, children, and youth through their educational institutions so that they began to long for freedom from every form of oppression, including colonial rule. Thus, patriotism is indeed a Christian virtue. The Indian Christians truly identified themselves with the Indian national movement and demonstrated their deepest concern for the cause. The Indian Christian community was not behind any other community in their desire for national freedom and in their readiness to work and make sacrifices for it. The accusation that Christians did not participate in the freedom struggle is a very serious one against the Indian Christian community and is a gross distortion of fact. But this distortion cannot be dismissed as a mere ignorance, but deliberate and ideologically motivated ignorance. There are records of active Christian participation in the Swaraj movement, the non-cooperation movement, the civil disobedience movement, and the Quit India movement. Since the 1920s, many Christian institutions and organizations passed resolutions expressing complete solidarity with the freedom movement. Here I introduced before you some key figures who were Christians and their contributions include. The first name, which I have not mentioned in the document which I have given you, the first name in this regard I would like to mention is none other than the pride of Nasrani Christians, Paramakal Governador. His brilliant work, Vartamana Pustakam, written in 1785, is an evergreen record of the nationalism of Indian Christians. Long before the debates on nationalism shaking the intellectual circles in 70s, Father Paramakal raised the slogan, India for Indians. Father Paramakal in Vartamana Pustakam speaks of the golden thread of national feeling that binds all Indians together. He can definitely called the champion of nationalism in India. Then we have C.F. Andrew, a close associate of Mahatma Gandhi. C.F. Andrews, also known as Deenabandhu, that is friend of the poor, was a Christian missionary and social reformer. He actively supported Gandhi's non-violent civil disobedience campaigns and played a crucial role in building bridges between different communities during the freedom struggle. Then we have the name A.O. Hume. Alan Octavian Hume, an Orientologist and civil servant, was one of the founding members of the Indian National Congress in 1885. He had support from Christian missionaries who recognized the importance of Indian representation and self-governance. Titus Thevarthundil, a devout Gandhian, he was known by the name Titus in his earlier days. Titus G was the name given to him by Mahatma Gandhi as a token of love and honor. As a visibly strong appreciation of this Christian soldier of our freedom march, Mahatma Gandhi visited Titus G's home in Maraman, Kerala on March 15, 1925, on his way to Aranmula temple. It was indeed a great newsmaking event of that time. On March 12, 1930, Gandhi and the 78 male Satyagrahi set out the so-called Dandi March or the Salt Satyagraha. Titus G was the only Christian in that group. In 1970s, he published the book The Bharat of My Dreams, in which he revealed his hope for the nation and for its teeming millions. Annie Besant, an influential theosophist and social reformer, played a significant role in India's freedom movement. She became actively involved in the Indian National Congress and advocated for home rule for India. Her efforts contributed to the empowerment and mobilization of Indians towards seeking independence. Barrister George Joseph, a Christian nationalist, was one of the earliest and among the most prominent Syrian Christian from Kerala to join the freedom struggle. George Joseph's working life was in Madurai. He is remembered for his role in the Home Rule agitation and the Vaikam Satyagraha, and for his editorship of Motilal Nehru's The Independent and Mahatma Gandhi's Young India. Barrister George Joseph played an important role in setting up the trade union movement and home rule movement. Brahmabandhab Ubadhyaya, a Hindu Catholic sadhu and theologian, played a leading role in Swadeshi movement. He was also one of the early leaders who enunciated the philosophy of non-cooperation movement. Joaquin Alva was another outstanding personality in the history of the freedom struggle. He was profoundly influenced by Mahatma Gandhi's ideals. As a student leader, he was the pioneer of a youth movement in India. He gave wholehearted devotion to the national movement and gave up his lucrative job in order to dedicate himself for the freedom struggle. Samuel Aron was another noteworthy Christian who participated in the national movement. He was a great industrialist of North Malabar. The active participation of the Arons in the national movement began with the Salt Satyagraha movement of 1930s. Among the leading Christian women leaders who took part in the freedom struggle, mention may be made of Mrs. George Joseph, Mrs. Gracie Aron, Miss Margaret Pavamani, Miss Mary Thomas and Miss Matilda Carlton, etc. Christian institutions and freedom struggle. Christian educational institutions, as mentioned earlier, played a crucial role in nurturing a generation of Indian leaders who actively participated in the freedom struggle. These institutions provided a platform for intellectual and social development and produced many freedom fighters and prominent leaders. It is important to note that while individuals and institutions with Christian affiliations contributed significantly to the freedom movement, the overall struggle for independence was a collective effort involving people from diverse backgrounds and communities, united in their aspiration for a free and sovereign India. The future of the relationship between church and politics in India. The relationship between the church and politics in India has been complex and varied. It is essential to note that the future of this relationship may continue to evolve, influenced by various factors. Here are some possible trends and scenarios for a future. Political engagement. The church might continue to engage in social and political issues, advocating for the rights of marginalized communities, promoting social justice, and addressing issues related to poverty, education, healthcare, and human rights. And above all, it could stand as a moral voice which warns against losing the values of democracy. However, the extent of its involvement will depend on the prevailing political climate and the willingness of church leaders to engage in the political sphere. Interfaith dialogue. India is a religiously diverse country and the church may actively participate in interfaith dialogues to promote religious harmony and understanding among different religious communities. Such initiative can contribute to a more inclusive and pluralistic society. Influence on policy making. Depending on its size and influence, the church might have a say in shaping certain policies related to education, healthcare, and social welfare. However, the level of influence could vary across different regions and political landscapes. Maintaining independence. The church will likely continue to emphasize its independence and separation from direct political involvement, adhering to its core mission of spiritual guidance and social service. The church in modern democratic India has to show the prudence to get rid of any kind of partisanship. This approach may help maintain its credibility and legitimacy as a moral authority. Challenges to the political involvement of the church. No boat on a choppy sea of Galilee would have been tossed as violently as the church in India finds itself shaken today. Trying to negotiate its way between competitive political space with Muslims and Hindus in distant Kerala, rampant persecution by non-state actors in the northeast and central states, its resources constructed by increasingly vindicative state policies, and its institutions, its social phase for 2 centuries, staring at an uncertain future in many regions. This is perhaps a moment of the greatest challenge for it since independence, a time to conserve its strength, consolidate its unity, and reach out to the friends in civil society for support. Archbishop Philip Neri of Goa and Daman said, a kind of monoculturalism had gripped India, and the constitution is in danger. Earlier, Archbishop of Delhi, Anil Kuto, had referred to a turbulent political atmosphere that threatened democracy and secularism and called for a prayer campaign. In his words, we are witnessing a turbulent political atmosphere which poses a threat to the democratic principles enshrined in our constitution and the secular fabric of our nation. The church may face challenges from conservative or nationalist forces that perceive its engagement in politics as interferences or a threat to national identity, as well as extreme Islamist fanatic groups who long for establishing caliphates. Striking a balance between involvement and maintaining neutrality might become a delicate challenge. Conclusion. It is crucial to recognize that political involvement can be sensitive and complex, and the church must exercise discernment and prudence in its actions. While the church can engage in social and political issues, it should always prioritize its primary mission of spreading the gospel and fostering the spiritual well-being of its members. Each local diocese and congregation may have specific guidelines and approaches based on their interpretations of biblical principles and the context in which they operate. In Jeremiah 29:7 says, "But seek the welfare of the city where I have sent you into exile, and pray to the Lord on its behalf. For its welfare you will find your welfare." Referring to Babylon, the prophet recognized that secular government served a legitimate purpose in God's plan for Israel. This is still true. Christian witness in public square contributes transcendent values about moral and ethical issues. Christian withdrawal opens a moral vacuum susceptible to the influences that pressure government to move outside the purview designed by God. Politics affect government, shape society, and influence culture. Because of what the Bible teaches that and the inevitability of its effect on our culture, Christians must care about politics. Therefore, Christians should work through civil authority for the advancement of justice and human good to provide critical illumination, personal example, and vocational leadership. This has been the historic witness of Christians concerned about the government, promoting good and restraining evil. And thus the church can function as the seed and sign of the kingdom of God. Thank you. And the next maybe clarifications.
Okay.
You are welcome.
Thank you, Father Dr. Tom, for your simple and precise and very good presentation. Congratulations, Father. Congratulations. So the main points which I strike, church politics challenges and prospectus. He has explained about the praying for leaders. Leaders, power is needed for the leaders, and also the contribution of Christians members he mentioned, and also institutions given the contribution given to the church, not only the society, the entire world. And it is a comprehensive presentation he did. Anyway, congratulations. We seated, Father. So now it is time for discussion, suggestions, and a very good interaction. I welcome all of you for this session. Welcome.
Thank you for the this very interesting presentation. I'm not asking a question as such, it's just an observation. See, we get these pieces of information, bits and pieces from, say, many YouTube videos, say many, we could see Protestant apologists talking with RSS and Islamic brothers about our contribution. Many places we read bits and pieces. But isn't high time that the church had some institution or some setup where some academic papers or books are being presented, so that at least officially with due references we could quote that this is not so. We have a history in India.
Thank you for the comment. And I am very delighted to say that before 15 years, we Alpha Institute has published a textbook which could be used among the, even for the higher secondary level. We are teaching in the corporate educational schools of the Archdiocese. We have more than 100 schools where we teach this text in the 10th standard, that is the Christian contribution for a nation building, where we have listed all these matters rather elaborately. A textbook around 70 or 75 pages, and is affordable within a 50 rupees price. And wherever I go and preach this matter, the same suggestion is putting forward by the audience that we need. Because last week I was in Palai Diocese preaching the retreat for the priests there, and I have mentioned certain of these facts there, and the Presbyterium itself asked me to provide certain documents or in written form, if any. And I am very delighted to say that Archbishop Pamplani, before 15 years, made a wonderful work on this. Maybe some of our students in Alpha Institute is here, and she is a witness to what I am saying. They have studied those things. And I am delighted to provide you the same text if you are interested. Thank you. I am not sure whether it is available, or we shall make it available. No problem.
One more thing, shouldn't we join the other congregations, not even Catholics, at least on the history part of the church?
Really, the involvement, Christian involvement does not mean that a Catholic involvement. Really, all denominations, Christian denominations, have their wonderful contributions. For example, Samuel Aron, a national leader, very especially engaged himself with the Quit India movement of 1930s. He was I think, a Protestant, an Anglican, situated near Kannur, and contributed an enormous amount of wealth and also his personal life also for this national movement. So the story of the intervention of Christians in the nation building is not Catholic, rather it is Christian. Therefore, this is a right time that we have to think for a Christian unity. That means the unity of faith. A unity of faith that will provide the nation a deeper value of fraternity, equality, justice. And also it will help us or enhance our political involvement. So unity of faith is, I think, the most inevitable dream that we have to dream right now. Okay, the name of that textbook is Christian Contribution in Nation Building. It's in Malayalam. It's Malayalam, yeah.
Thank you, Father, for your presentation. In the present scenario of politics and church in India, there is a greater need of younger generation participation in the Christian participation in government. But the younger generation, they are quite reluctant to participate in the government. So how can the church help the younger generation to come forth in the government?
Yeah, thank you. And in that we have to say mea culpa, because I want to say one thing. It was the Christian institutions of the freedom movement, or the period of freedom movement struggle, the factory of national leaders, the factory of politicians. And we have, without proper planning or without vision, just banned campus politics. What was the result? The result was we did not have right now enough Christian leaders. We don't have leaders. So one of can be many demerits in the campus politics, but there is a merit. We can find good candidates, good leaders, and we can train them. So maybe for finding the future leaders, we have to think how to increase the leadership quality of our children. And politics is not a worse thing as we once thought. It is something good. We are good citizens as well as good citizens of the kingdom of God. So I think we have to rethink about our vision on politics. We all together said this is something very bad thing. Now politics is not so bad. So we want to rethink, and even we have to re-establish because we banned it in our campuses officially, but it still works, it functions. Function is very well the SFI, the other anti-Christian or other movement which are antipathic to us. They are well functioning in the undergrounds. So I think we have to rethink, and this is the right time or this is the pivotal time to engage with it. Thank you.
So Father Tom, thank you very much for your excellent presentation. Thank you for that comment which you made now, because we, for the sake of easiness in management, the official church very often does a lot of evil things. And ban of politics in schools and colleges is one of them. Actually, as you were highlighting the persons here who took part in a freedom fight, we cannot boldly make any statement about the church as an institution, the bishops, the official church. We cannot say that they really supported the anti-British movement, first of all. Secondly, now as we talk here, as you present this paper, you have taken a perspective from the official church from the perspective of the official church. Actually, in the freedom fight, it was individuals, Christians, who came forward. But now we don't speak about what Christians can do. Let us leave our institutional dimension, because our bishops, cardinals, CBCI, CCBI, KCBC can't do anything important in this level. because institutions need to stand. So let us think from the other perspective. Just as the individuals who stood for India against the British rule, it is time for us to stand for right politics in India. And I wonder why you left out Annie Mascarin, the top woman leader from Kerala who took part in even the Kerala government has approved, and a statue is there in Trivandrum, Annie Mascarin. So thank you, Father. This was just a comment about you. Thank you.
Thank you, Father Dr. Joshi Mayatil, for this wonderful comment. And first, I thank you very especially for your agreement with regard to my point that the what we say, the campus politics, yeah. And then the individual movement. Yeah, we can say a name, we can name in the clerical order, maybe Bishop C.H. Azaria of Bombay, who officially written and a pastoral letter addressing for a home rule movement. Bishop D.H. Azaria, I think. Maybe Father K. Francis sir can mention about him more, I don't know. And the other leaders, maybe we don't know whether the official church supported them, and our concept of church being always focusing on the clerical order, bishop, and the church is, we ourselves are the church. So any movement of a Christian for a good cause is a movement of the church, is an action of the church. So when I act in my personal risk, when Father Joshi Mayatil speak for the Christian values, it's an act of the church, because we together form the church. So maybe that can be for a justification, but we don't know right now. Anyway, the individual always create history. Maybe after 100 years, when someone present a paper on the Christian involvement in Indian politics, may name Dr. K.M. Francis as a lay leader, or Dr. Mary Regina as a lay women leader. Maybe the history mark their involvement. And we say that they walked with the church. They were not away from the church. So the church means we together. However, the observation of Dr. Joshi being a very, very outstanding figure in our Kerala church as well as Indian church is worthy, and I thank you for your appreciation and your adding something to what I, and definitely Annie Mascarin. And there are many names. I just listed certain names for the purpose of mentioning, and there are many maybe. And maybe we can add in this paper that name and her contribution also. Thank you, Father.
So thank you, Dr. Tom, for your wonderful session. Anyway, he has given a light for us to think. Even the campus politics, whether it is good or not, everything is debatable issues. Anyway, he has given a light for us to think also. And also the many new items he produced. So his thoughts were, giving us to think more. Usually we will say our thinking will have changes later. So thinking is very important. First of all, our thinking pattern should be positive. Then it will have greater changes in our day-to-day life and day-to-day programs. Anyway, the interventions of all of the eminent personalities was wonderful. So in the name of all of you, I congratulate Father Tom. Give a good applause to Father. Thank you, Father. Very good presentation. Thank you, Father. Thank you. So next we have a session, very important section, by Dr. K.M. Francis. Welcome, sir, to the dais. So we have after this we have one more session of Dr. Mary Regina also. So just I would like to introduce our honorable guest, Mr. K.M. Francis. I hope that all of you are familiar with his talks and his intervention in the various parishes and churches, the Kerala, India, and outside India also. He was a teacher, professor at St. Thomas College, Thrissur, for mathematics and economics for 34 years, since 1981 to 2015. After the retirement, he is visiting faculty in University of Calicut, and he is also visiting faculty in the seminary, Marymatha Major Seminary, and also Kottayam Paurastya Vidyapidam, and also in various seminaries and various institutions also. Now he is serving as lay commission secretary of KCBC, and also he has received various awards like Sabhatharam Award, Kerala Sabha Award, like that. Various awards he got from various dioceses and also from KCBC. Anyway, he used to take classes for every person. For us, priest had a training program. In that he took a wonderful class for us, or inspiring class, how to a priest should be in the church. And also, he has a person with a good vision also. So in the name of all of you, I invite Mr. K.M. Francis, Dr. K.M. Francis, to the program and present the topic. Welcome, sir. Welcome.
Dear friends, actually, I don't know how to read a paper or create a paper, a scholastic work, because I am a natural orator, not more than that. Oratory is my main business. And I am indebted to my father, who was only a 7th standard education, but he was under the training of British Army and Anglicans. He taught me many things from European perspective. That helped me very much in preparing this document. Also, he introduced me the myths and Puranas in India. Naturally, that is not happened in our normal Catholic families. And when I was asked to prepare a paper with the title, The Role of Christians in the Policy Making of India, I searched many historical books published by the government, because that is the authentic textbooks. But we can never situate ourselves in that text. Moreover, the history writing has a peculiarity that history writers are concentrating on. They are saying that history is the history of political authorities. What about church history? Church history is the history of bishops. No, not of the. There is no layman in the church history. They are erased. Then what is the need of history? History gives us identity. If there is no history, there is no identity. If in the church history there is no layman finds no identity in the church. If Christians have no place in the history of India, then Christians have no identity. So in my methodology, I say that nation is built not by political leaders. Nation is built by, there are various histories. History of language, history of laureates, history of science, history of philosophy, history of inventions, history of schools and universities, history of philosophy. Their toils and troubles have made a nation into its current status. Do you agree with me? That is the basic thing we have to kept in mind before we are entering into my paper, that is Christianity and their role in the making of India. And if I am asked you, can you show me, can you locate your residence? How can you show me your residence? You have to use the map. Otherwise, you have to take me to your house. He has to take me to Europe. Why I am saying that? Without a road map, we cannot situate our role in a history. So what is the roadmap of nation building? We have to check first that. Then we know the different roles played by Christians in that nation building. If we define nation, a nation is a group of people who share a common history. That is the most important thing. Common history, traditions, culture, and language. When different nations form together and organize themselves under a government, it becomes a country. India is a union of different nation states, actually. America is the federation. Now the concept Europe itself, they become a single, they are working as a single nation. How they unified? There is a process for that unification. We should realize that in the formation of every nation, there is an epic and a myth. Without epic and myth and various Puranas, we cannot create a nation. What is the actual role of this? You just check India. Ramayana, Mahabharata. There are lots of Puranas. What about Europe? We should realize that the real undercurrent in Europe is Iliad, Odyssey, Aeneid. And each separate nations have their own stories. For example, for Portuguese, there is Lusíadas. And for Spanish, the Cervantes wrote a book, Don Quixote. They are celebrating that text. I don't know all the minute details of that. And China had their own epics. And this epic is, what is an epic? Epic is the dream of a people about their future society. What about these Babylonians? The epic of Gilgamesh. And I consider the first 11 chapters of Genesis as simply a myth. When I say myth, don't misunderstood it as a superstition. It has its symbolic values. It shares the common identity of a people about a future society, that is Eden of Garden. Every community has an epic. But that epic is a dream. For example, I want to ask you a question. Ramayana says that monogamy is the model form of family. Because Rama and Sita are Uttama households. You know, that was in dream. Have you ever find a single law in India which states that monogamy is the rule of India? Have you found somewhere? Epic will be realized only if that epics will be translated into statutes, and state is the authority which implement the statutes. So the dreams in the epics should be translated into statutes, and the compilation of the statutes is known as our constitution. So epics are the dreams, and constitution is the reality and state behind that. Actually, I got this basic idea from Peter Schallenberg, a professor from Louvain, I think. Last year he came and delivered a speech in St. Thomas College. So this statute making, and whether the statutes create a nation, that is another thing. I got this idea particularly from Hegel. Hegel says that a right is a right only if it is recognized by the people, or if unless it is recognized by the majority of the people in the nation, that right is not a right. And Karl Marx is an opponent of me. He says that philosophy is a weapon against religion, he says that. But I know that philosophy is the best weapon against superstition and fundamentalism. And he says that when an idea transgress the consciousness of the majority, that idea itself become a material force for the social transformation. Actually, this idea bequeathed from Republic of Plato. You know, Plato, while writing the Republic, he wrote that. What is the role of schools? The fundamental role is to make a nation. The schools are the hatcheries where people has to taught that these and these things is necessary to actuate. And he wrote that book just to teach what justice is. And from that book, I realized that is the reciprocity of duties and rights. That creates a nation. So, what is the role of education? And moreover, when I read the New Testament, and from the advice of my father himself, I realized that New Testament is a book of statutes, not about dreams. Not about dreams. Because Jesus directly said, no divorce, monogamy. Many statements, but unfortunately we are very hesitant to define his teaching about the role of authority in a state. Jesus replied to Zebedee, sons of Zebedee, that what is the difference between the kings among the Gentiles and kings among you? That is a statute. But Syrian Christians in Oriental Christians never searched into such a part of New Testament. They considered it as a thing to contemplate, not to actuate. This actuation process is only happened in Europe. That is the problem. So first we should search how Christianity transformed the entire Europe into a modern European state or American state. That should be our first thing. For that, church realized that. So I just mentioned that New Testament is completely statutes. Who is the king? He is the servant of people. Has church identified that? No. That is the question. But church identified one thing. What is that? How can we unify a nation? From the example of Tower of Babel, we realized that community and that nation is divided because of language. Nation is divided because of language. And in Acts of Apostles, we know that that nation is unified by language. So language has a unifying character. What is that character? Is it the imposing of one language over the whole nation? That is what is done by Indians by imposing Sanskrit. That is what mistake was done by Roman Empire over its constituent states. In Rome, the official language was Latin. Everywhere in Rome, even the mass has to say in Latin language. up to the Second Vatican Council. And Britishers, Germans, French, Spanish, Portugal, everyone should speak in, the official language is Latin. They have their own folk languages. In Portugal there is Portuguese, Spain another. In Italy it is Italian. Even though Church realized that in the text, never it actuated in practice. But one thing is real, the Justinian realized that, Emperor Justinian. He is considered as saint among Oriental Christians. I don't know whether Catholics are considering him as saint. That Emperor Justinian codified the statutes and made basically the constitution. Whether the king is above the constitution or below the constitution, that is another thing. That constitution is even now the basis of all democratic nations in this world. Last day, Modi passed a statute. What is the statute? If you rape one girl, it will be punished by death. That was in the statute of Justine. So that was the practice. So constitution is the realization of the epic. That should be realized. And language is the fusing point. In what way? I will show you. When we study about the Renaissance, we consider Dante as the father of Renaissance. Why? Why he is considered as Renaissance leader? Because, you know, in Italy, the official language was Latin, and ordinary men cannot enter into the knowledge of the powerful. So he fused the folk language into the scientific structure of the Latin language and wrote many books in Italian language. At that time it was not practice. The first time in the history of the world, a literary work in the vernacular is done by Dante and many books published by him. And that process is widespread after him in all European countries. In Portugal, they developed Portuguese language. In Spain, Spanish language. Britishers, all these languages were created in the scientific structure of Latin. So if you study Latin, it is very easy to tackle all the languages. So then they created dictionary. What is the use of dictionary? Normally, my students, when they read one text, and if they don't understand a word, they assume the meaning of that word. But I tell them, never you get the real meaning of the text. You have to use the dictionary. So dictionary is the second thing which unites different cultures. The first is the scientific formation of that folk language. Second is the dictionary. Third is the grammatic structure for all the nations. Then text, then printing, then universities, schools. So Plato's idea really became popular in Europe, especially after St. Augustine. Because St. Augustine ordered that with every cathedral there should be one school. That is known as cathedral schools. And in 12th century, 13th century, we are calling that time period as Dark Ages. Dark Ages. But I laugh at that because almost all the prominent universities, Oxford, Cambridge, Padua University, Perugia University, Sorbonne University, then many universities started at that time, and all the scientific inventions and innovations started from that time period. And in England, Britain, there particular process is happened. Earlier, while Father Mayatil and Olikarot was speaking, not Olikarot, and another Father Sindoparuthu speaking, they quoted two statements from St. Peter and St. Paul, stating that the people should consider the king as the ordained by whom? A God. You know, what is this Magna Carta? The Magna Carta is the procedure where the lords, a section of lords, asked the king to obey the statutes made by the lords. The Cardinal of Canterbury accepted that. But later, Pope declared that that is not good. Because king is appointed by God. But you should realize that later that House of Lords, that group of lords become House of Lords. And again, that becomes House of Commons. And our Parliament and Rajya Sabha is replica of House of Lords and House of Commons. This has a background in Rome. What is that background? There is Senate. Senate means those who have with silver hairs. Senate. That is what in Julius Caesar. That book is given to me by my father when I was only 12. Julius Caesar Brutus says that we can make Seneca, not Seneca, that man who wrote into our group because his hair is, silvery hair has some value. That is merely Senate. And another plebiscite. Both are there. Oh, coming to the European context, they made it their democratic process. I will give you a clue. That is, wherever Britishers ruled, everywhere there is democracy. But wherever Portuguese and Spanish ruled colonies, we can never find democracy there. Why that? We should study about that. Okay? I just gave you a clue. Okay, coming to our Indian situation. In India, the Syrian Christians did not engage in such an activity of making the epics and our dreams into statutes. Statutes. Instead, they were adoring, praying. In that situation, Portuguese came into our land. Portuguese. And Portuguese came and they had only a few time period and their power here is very limited. Very few in number, very few in area. But however, they introduced college, they introduced school, they introduced hospital, they introduced printing press, they introduced the text. Okay, they left the place in 1652. Remember, only in 1653, Conan Cross oath happened because while this Portuguese was here, that was impossible. Oh, coming to my point. After that, what actually Arnaud did? What actually Arnaud did? That is my question. We say that he wrote that book, he wrote that book, he wrote that book. Actually, he fused folk language of Malayalam into Sanskrit structure of grammar. That was his main. Then he wrote poetry. That is the actual work of Dante made in Italy. Because they know that Portugal became a nation because of this what? Fusion of Portuguese folk language with the Latin structure. Spanish know that. Italians know that. And that knowledge is from Acts of Apostles. That if you, without fusing the language, that is not imposing a language over the all. That will shatter the nations, never unify the nations. And you know, that process is happened in the 17th century. And who are the persons that, you know, who developed our current national language, Hindustani? We are saying that it is Hindi. Actually, its name is Hindustani. Because Arabs tried to make Arab as an official language of India. Hindus tried to impose Sanskrit as the official language of India. All the books were written in Sanskrit language. Then who can read and understand those books? That is the main problem. So in North India, I would like to mention the name of Gilchrist. He is the person, I have written it, role of Christianity in India. Father Arnos had realized that unification of different languages could be, that is in the 5th page. Unification of different languages could be made only by fusing folk literature and Sanskrit. Moreover, he understood the need for a dictionary to fuse different languages in India. Through his poetry and Malayalam Portuguese dictionary, a new era was inaugurated in Indian history. Benjamin Bailey, Herman Gundert standardized the alphabets, and Francis Angelos produced a Malayalam grammar text. This is the fundamental process of unifying different groups of people in a country. Have you got the idea? This process formerly had happened in Europe. That is what they implemented here. And in Tamil Nadu, Constantine Joseph Becci in 1680 to 1747 standardized Tamil language and compiled Tamil Latin dictionary. He also produced a Tamil grammar book for the use of common men. In 1968, Tamil people recognized his contribution renovating Tamil with the scientific structure and thus linking Tamil with international languages. He is known among the Tamil scholars as Dante of Tamil. Last week I referred this. Before that I know that what the missionaries have done here is the fusing of the language. Similarly, in the 18th century, John Gilchrist, 1759 to 1841, he was basically a neuro doctor, but standardized Hindi language, which came to be known as Hindustani. Hindustani, besides English, is the official language of India, known in the name of Hindi. So what is our role in unifying India or creating India as a nation? Without a proper methodological framework, we could not situate ourselves inside that. Moreover, we Catholics, we Syro-Malabars never say the name of Latins. Latins never say the name of Syro-Malabar. We Catholics in general never say the name of Protestants, Anglicans, etc. But we should realize that each one of these groups realize the different parts of one reality, that is Jesus Christ. That is pluralism within the church. That is what promoted by our Pope Francis in recent years. Not Pope Francis, during the last 50 years after the Second Vatican Council, our church realized that all are contributing to different parts of the reality, Jesus Christ. We Catholics cannot claim that truth about Jesus known only to Catholics. That was the fundamental difference. Then the next step is what Europeans did in Europe to inseminate the ideas. That is creation of universities. I will refer some of the Bishop's College, Calcutta, 1810. CMS College, Kottayam, 1850. Trichy St. Joseph's College, 1830. Epheston College, Mumbai, 1823. St. Thomas College, Thrissur, 1896. Brennan College, Kannur, 1862. Were significant Christian contribution. Following this, Pachayappa in Madras, that was a Hindu movement. Ferguson College in Pune, that is in 1896. Balagangadhara Tilak and others organized that. All these colleges were hatcheries of national leaders in freedom struggle of India. That was already mentioned by our father Tom already. From the period of Portuguese intervention into the life of indigenous Christians. Reformation happened in the life of Syrian Christians in Kerala. However, Syrian Christians entered into these mechanisms through the work of Chavara Kyriakos Elias. He, under the tutelage of Varapolli Bishop Bichinelli, started schools with every parish. He also provided educational facilities for the untouchables in Kerala. Those untouchables trained in Christian schools paved the way for the formation of SNDP Yogam and social transformation of Idavas. Where from Dr. Palpu? Actually, SNDP Yogam was developed by Dr. Palpu. Where was he trained? That is my question. He was rejected by Travancore Medical College and he was accepted by Madras Medical College, studied there, and in Karnataka, our Christian missionaries trained him, and he came back and helped Sri Narayana Guru for developing SNDP Yogam and various colleges and schools. Have you got the idea? Now in Kerala, you know, yesterday I was participating in a seminar in Kottayam, Seminary, organized by Paurastha Vidyapidam. And one leftist argues that Renaissance began from the last quarter of 19th century. That is a technique to erase our role in the process of Renaissance. Actually, at that time began what? The fruits of works done by missionaries for the last 400 years. You take the history of every activity. For example, where from the physical education course started? YMCA, Madras. Where from nursing? Okay, nursing started. As far as my knowledge, the Bishop of Koilon, Ben Seeger, brought 2 sisters from Switzerland and started a course in Travancore Medical College. Till 2000, this was the monopoly of, nursing was the monopoly of Christians. And others considered it as a menial job, only for the prostitutes. You check all the books or cinemas, they consider nurses as a menial job. They forget that it is a service. It is purely Christian endeavor. And modern hospital, the history of modern hospitals, history of medical colleges, you check every history, you will find that that was then how our hominy Baba got ideas, where from our this RSS ന്റെ തലവന്റെ പേരെന്താ? Savarkar. How did he went to Britain and studied law and many things? Because he know English. Gandhiji, Savarkar, Ambedkar, all these haves went there because they know English. Where from they got English? They got English because of the policy of RR of Macaulay. R. You should realize that I have never studied under a teacher. I am opposing 3 people. 1, my father; 2, the teacher; 3, the priest. And where from I got the knowledge? These 3 groups taught me how to read and write. Everything independent. Everything independent. Till now, I am not a Sabataram. I am not part of the official part of the Syro Malabar Church. I am an independent person. That is what Father Joshi Mayatil said earlier. Individuals have, from their own responsibility, brought into the field to teach the statutes, to inseminate it through dramas, poetries. What is the history of cinema? What is the history of drama? Chavuttu Nadagam was the first public performance that was political in content. I am concluding because, you know, I have given you a methodology, that's all. Everything other is contents. All these contents you know. But without a methodology, it is like pouring the water without a vessel. Thank you for inviting me and listening me carefully. Sorry for my style is entirely different that of oratory. I don't know actually how to read a text, etc. Sorry, and thank you once again for my father and Dr. C.J. Davis, former faculty member in St. Thomas College, helped me to design this thing because he is well versed in Portuguese and Latin language, and he translated the Lusíadas, the epic of Portuguese in Malayalam. So with the thanks to my parents and my supervisor and all those who have assembled here, I remain. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for wonderful and inspiring talk by Dr. K.M. Francis. And when we heard your talk, really we have to read and more. Then only we will be able to catch him and also to follow. And he was giving us lights, small light, little lights. We have to think again and again. I think that it was a beginning, his class is a beginning for us to think more and more. Anyway, it was highly inspiring. Whatever the methodology is different from the former lectures, but I think that it has its own variety. It has innovation, it attracts us also. Okay, thank you, sir. Now, it is time for us to interact. You can ask questions and you can give suggestions. Welcome to all of you. Regina madam can interfere. Father.
Exquisite, I should say. Wonderful presentation. And the things you have written, you are convinced. So more than those letters, actually your words count a lot. And your wide knowledge, the world history, literature, and the philosophical background that you have. Now, Professor Francis, yes, you have given us the history. You have given us an idea of what happened, and how things will happen. Of course, from that we can read how things will happen. So tell us plainly what the role of the church in policy making of India is. Tell us plainly. At present, the situation is the BJP's government is ruling the country, and the church in India, we don't know where we are. And please tell us plainly, directly, the role of the church in policy making.
Okay. Now what happens is that we are defining, even in the deliberations, we are defining the church as hierarchy. That is the problem. You know, we never find the role of common man in the definition of church. I am deeply criticizing that things and trying to make a revolution within the church. Okay, that is the fundamental problem of the church. Then, secondly, has in the policy making, these Christians have done anything? You know, the church itself has done. While I was reading the book of Nehru, he wrote that while I was in Britain, I had many Anglican friends and Catholic friends. Anglican friends were slaves of their king. But Catholics gave me introduced to me the social doctrines of the popes. That means Reirunavarum, Octagesimo Anna, etc. And actually he was impressed by that. And if you know the history of Germany, after the Second World War, it is totally shattered. And after 10 years, they developed everything from ashes. Who was the leader for that? That was Konrad Adenauer. Konrad Adenauer. And his theory about nation was socially oriented market economy. That is the content of Fratelli Tutti. That was already implemented by Germany. And the party, what is the name of their party? Christian Democratic Party. And Nehru followed that in India. That was the real policy basis of Indian economy regarding political economy. Secondly, I have written that about the names of certain leaders. It is not completed. So that was how the church in general influenced the policy of government, especially in political economic matters. And we know that the constitution in itself, because the people, in Ramayana, you just, why Sita was forsaken by Rama? Why Sita was forsaken by Rama? It was people's verdict. So Ramayana says that the king is under the verdict of people. And what about people? People, do the people obey certain laws? In India, we have no idea about that. But in Torah, we found that every day the king should read the laws. For what? Then only he know that he is below the law. People and rulers should be below the statutes. Here, what is now doing? Modi is handling what? Modi becomes the law. Or the people, Maidis becomes the law. That is mob lynching. Why Plato objected democracy? He objected democracy because that is mobocracy. Such ideas of Old Testament and Christianity inseminated through Europe and embedded in the structure of Indian in the nation of India, but they don't know where from it is derived. Chandrayaan 3, if it is succeeded, good. Why Chandrayaan 2 failed? Do you know where from we got the project Chandrayaan? In 1972, 250 of our engineers went to Paris and stayed there. They taught how to make rockets. And one of my friends was their clerk, and he has, don't record that. Diplomatic bag. That is the basis of our Chandrayaan. Do you know? We don't, if there is a theory, if you say that dy by dx is something, that should be, for example, if you want to know normal curve, it should start from x plus a plus b whole raised to 1, a plus b whole raised to 2, a plus b whole raised to 3, a plus b whole raised to 4, a plus b whole raised to n, then Pascal's triangle, then, so we should travel from bottom to top. Here in India, we have a constitution. We believe that it is the product of Ambedkar. Ambedkar collected it from Canada, America and Britain. Where from they got? From Europe, Italy, Francisco Petrarch, all those were legalists. and they got it from Roman jurisprudence. Okay, this is the root. They don't know we don't know the route map where from this occurred. So this is originally the Christians were the determining policy in our nation, but we ourselves don't know our value. That is the main problem. Okay, that is my, I think you got the point that our economic policy, but now Modi is moving to neo-liberalism. That is why Adani and Ambani is growing. He is protecting that, and they are giving a share to Modi. That is why he is doing PR work for next election. That's all. Okay. From European context, what is your response?
I like I like very much your idea that indeed, if you look to what is definitely also true for all kinds of histories, is that history is usually told from the perspective of the conqueror, the leading classes, and that indeed there is limited attention to the role of let's call it lay politicians, etc. We are becoming aware, for example, in I think it is happening in many countries in Europe, but there was a kind of public search, and during the last 2 years there were problems in Brussels in a certain in a certain tunnel, and that to restore the tunnel, and this coincided with very strong societal post-colonial criticism of our second king, who had colonized Congo heavily, King Leopold. One is decided to remove his name and to replace it by, and one was asking for, can you please, people, dig in your memory and look for the name of strong women who have contributed to Brussels and to its life, and one found a good alternative. So such things. I also, as an ecclesiologist, I think there are elements which resonate between your story and what I'm trying to say, especially in response to some questions that when you were saying that to your understanding, and I have read from your biography that you have an important role in the Commission for the Laity, but generally speaking, words like synodality sound very beautifully. The theory is there. I also spoke about mutual accountability, but it should be brought into praxis, and in the praxis of the way Christian churches function in India is maybe still a bit too much top down. So this is the only thing I can say. But you have really great theories which you have brought here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir.
So thank you, Dr. K. Francis sir, for your wonderful, inspiring talk. Give a good applause to Doctor. And also I thank Dr. Joshi and also the Professor D. Peter D. May for the interventions. So thank you everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Chako Jaramail, for moderating the session. Now, without much delay, we move on to the fourth session of the 16th MEPC conference. And to moderate this session, I cordially invite Reverend Dr. Vincent Alapat.
So, dear friends, we all come to the concluding session, last input session of this MEPC Symposium, for which we have an eminent scholar, an appealing personality, a female voice. And I think Dr. Regina Madam needs no introduction to this community or audience. Herself is the secretary of the Archdiocesan Pastoral Council and a present professor of Kerala Agricultural University and the head Krishi Vijnan Kendra Thrissur. She can very freely, eloquently speak both English and Malayalam, which you can immediately experience. And the question raised by her is very interesting for us because the participants are young, boiling blood youth here. The question is, should the church means we all, with all our moral values and ethics, get involved in politics? And let's listen to Regina Madam.
Thank you, Father Vincent, for introducing me. I was thinking of poor me standing for the last session after so many eloquent leaders of the church, I would say, both from the lay people as well as from the clergy, speaking to you on various aspects. The stage has been set in this whole day. The drama has begun. The biblical, theological, philosophical, historical aspects have been explained to you in detail by each of the resource person. The relationship between politics and the church. As Father just said, quoting Father Mayatil, Joshi Mayatil, my dear friend, the church is us and not the hierarchy. And now the most difficult question of the era has been given to me by Father Bilju, my dear friend, and I think it was very purposeful because all others escaped that question actually. Should the church get involved in politics? Do I have, or you change? Okay. And this is what we see in the press and the media these days. I don't have to read to you because it is all there. The photos are self-explanatory. The leaders of the nation and the state, they are very decent, I would say. They speak to us, they come to us, they sit with us. We are in dialogue, not only with us, but from the Pope, they are very friendly people. But you can see, I don't have to name, maybe for Dr. Peter, I would say that it is our Prime Minister there at the top with the Pope. It is our Prime Minister there with the church leaders or the bishops when he came to Kerala, Kochi last month or so. The Prime Minister praying at Delhi in the cathedral, I think in Delhi. The Mr. Rahul Gandhi, who is the leader of the opposition, he is like practically, he leads the Congress party, he prays with us, they are all with us. Our chief minister, who is a leftist, a member of the Communist Party, but he also sits with us, always converses with us. But the last picture you must see, it is very, very shattering. For you can see the laity, the lay people with their boats in the sea. That is a strike, Dr. Peter, that took place a few months ago in Kerala. That is what I should say, a rallying of defenses in the sea. You can see our priests and nuns over there with them, with us laity. And they were fighting for their basic needs, I would say, housing, food, education, everything is being denied by certain people who have been mentioned here by the early presentators. And in spite of all these happening, you must remember the last Lok Sabha election when Kerala, how the pattern of thought of the democratic citizens of Kerala. Next, please. And in spite of all the definitions, I am a practitioner, and fortunately or unfortunately, I am part of the government, as I am a government servant. Politics is a process by which we select our leaders who makes policies. Politics produces authoritative decisions about public issues. And to be very simple, it defines who gets what, when, and how. And I too tried to look into what the church says about our position of the church and the laity and the clergy with the nuns in politics. I knew that things would be dealt with here from the Bible to today, so I tried to go from today backwards. And I was just reading incidentally the Instrumentum Laboris for the General Assembly of the Synod of Bishops, which is going to come on and which is in public now. And in its 4th paragraph it is said, some quotes are said here, the journey so far has been defined in it. It says that too many wars that stain our world with blood. This is a scenario at present, leading to a call for a renewed commitment to build peace. In the context of, in a global context with Ukraine war, in a national context with Manipur, Nu, etc. in front of us, and Kerala is comparatively peaceful region, Dr. May, but we too have had our clashes and bloodstains in our midst. Climate change, very important, because we are denied of our basic necessities by it. That implies a necessary priority of caring for the common home. Yesterday, we were having a seminar at the university, and we were talking about the water shortage that is awaiting us this year. We have received only 30% of the rainfall that is expected so far, which means we are going to be short of drinking water, let alone for agriculture. So please be careful about it. An economic system that produces exploitation, and of course we know what we are all into now, a throwaway culture. Cultural colonialism that crushes minorities to the point of martyrdom and emigration. Someone was asking, Dimple was asking earlier about migration, I think, or the role of youth in this. But where are our youth? They are no more here. Why? Why is the question? I don't blame them. I won't ask them to remain behind in India with all these things, with blood, with climate change, with an economic system, though we boast of coming up in economy. Do they have enough jobs here? Once upon a time, agriculture was the basic occupation. There was only a need to produce food, but that is not there anymore. That is not the culture anymore. So how can they be here and participate in the church activities? And the local churches have to be equipped to address urgent social realities like cultural pluralism, like being a scattered minority. It is not easy to exist. We are seeing that, to experience aggressive secularism that seems to consider religious experience irrelevant. When we speak of the youth, this is also coming up very hard and fast. And we have internal issues of power, conscience, money, abuse, which have been talked upon or dealt with. And I think these are open wounds. This is also mentioned in the Instrumentum Laboris. I have not made these sentences by myself. If you go into it, you will see these. The consequences of which have yet to be fully addressed. We do not know what we have led our future into. And the church must add a growing and intensified commitment to conversion and reform in order to prevent similar situations from happening again in the future, is all that we can say. A missionary church, this is also a quote from IL, a missionary synodal church has a duty to ask itself how it can recognize and value the contribution of each baptized person to go out of himself or herself and participate together with others in something greater. That's what the Pope says. To make an active contribution to the common good of humanity. All these are definitions of politics, I think. As I said, I have not studied political science. I'm not even a social scientist. I'm an agricultural engineer. But I think as a common man, as a layman, that these things in red are definitions of politics. Various definitions of politics. So, which is part of the dignity of the person, each person, even within the Christian community or outside. And we have been talking about walking together and synodality for long now. And Pope says that walking together means not leaving anyone behind. There should not be a person behind you. All of them must be in front of you or at least along with you. How are we going to build a synodal church capable of promoting the belonging and participation of the least within the church and in society? And I think this is the need for politics or the church to be involved in politics. And going to Fratelli Tutti, many have quoted, but this was my most liked sentence or loud sentence. It is the definition of political love. Recognizing that all people are brothers and sisters, it is there in our national oath that we take daily, and seeking forms of social friendship that include everyone is not merely utopian, says Fratelli Tutti. Any effort along these lines becomes a noble exercise of charity. For whereas individuals can help others in need, when they join together in initiating social processes of fraternity and justice, it has been discussed already, they enter the field of charity at its most vast, namely political charity. This entails working for a social and political order whose soul is social charity. Once more, I appeal, says Pope, for a renewed appreciation of politics. So, as already said, we did not consider nursing as a noble profession, we do not consider politics as a noble profession. But the Pope says it is a lofty vocation, not a profession, but the words are different. The Pope defines it as a vocation, but I too have inhibitions within me, maybe because I am a Catholic. Whether it can be the present situation or the present political world can be considered as a vocation. Anybody entering it will be thrown into that mud. So anyway, the Pope says, a lofty vocation, consider it as a vocation and one of the highest forms of charity inasmuch as it seeks the common good. What more can we expect from the church? To the question of Dr. Bilju, who asked me to define the role of church in that was not my. Should the church be involved in politics? This is the answer. Consider it as the most noblest vocation and the highest form of charity. And I cannot leave behind Laudato Si, because Laudato Si has been defined, explained. We have led many seminars, but it's one comment on Laudato Si which is in the internet, because it was considered as Pope's sermon for the common good of the man and the common home. But no, it was politics. It is no accident that politics and its synonyms occur 52 times in the text, says someone. For with eyes to see and ears to hear, the central message to employ a worldview of integral ecology to establish control over economic forces. if economics is related to politics, if politics is all about economics, of course, Laudato Si is politics. What we need are political leaders, says Pope in the Laudato Si, with new imaginations. That is where we need to come to a consensus, how to train, when to train. With new imaginations, leaders who can redefine political leadership by discovering new job and business opportunities. There is an urgent need to develop policies, and you know what he says about each, to have fresh water, to have fresh air, to have enough oxygen, to have enough food for all. That was Laudato Si. And this is a question, should religion and politics mix? As being part of a system, as being part of the Archdiocese of Thrissur, the Pastoral Council of the Archdiocese of Thrissur for the past 15 or more years, this question does come up every year and all. When the things go out of hand, when we have clashes with politics, when we have elections coming up, every now and then this question comes. When our bishops and clergy begin to speak, this is a question that is raised to silence them, saying that politics is something different, it is a different entity, religion is something private. So these are some of the thoughts that is shared here. Of course, politics and church are entirely different, mutually independent and self-governing entities. And just as the political community should guarantee the church, of course, and other religions, the space needed to carry out our mission, the church also respects the legitimate autonomy of the democratic order. The church and the state both put themselves at the service of the humanity. And this common purpose will mean that the state and church may on occasion share common ground in their pursuit of a more just society. And often, as in the time of the floods in 2018, when we started to provide what was needed, the first people or an institution who came forward to help those who were affected by the floods, it was the church all over Kerala. But slowly the politicians got wind of this, and they tried to enter our premises and to control of all that we did. It's a fact, and at times we cannot resist them also. The church and the state may sometimes be at odds on specific issues. When Jesus gives Caesar its due, but at times the dues are should be negative also. We saw it in Virinyam. The church has the right and duty to provide a moral judgment on temporal matters when this is required by faith or the moral law. Even yesterday, I think it is going on in Pune, we are having the pro-life meeting going on. The group of kids from my parish, the Joyful Six, I saw their performance on stage there. I saw one of our church leaders, Mr. James Archangadan there. The pictures are coming over thanks to WhatsApp and other social media. But church becomes a moral teacher to the society. I would not say to the politicians, but to the society. The separation of the church and state does not mean that people of faith should disconnect from public action. Some people argue that religion should be confined to the private sphere. The fundamental right to religious freedom should be maintained, and that is in question now, and provide protection for religious groups to practice their faith and act on their values in public life. The church does not seek to exercise political power or eliminate the freedom of opinion of Catholics regarding political questions, or do not eliminate the freedom of opinion of Catholics. And that is where Professor K.M. Francis, Father Joshi Mayatil, those who speak out in public, rather my hands and feet are tied because I am part of the government. But you people are doing well. Congratulations and thank you. Father Tom also is left, I don't know. Okay. Instead, it seeks to instruct. So we do not curtail the rights of our Catholic our members of our church from expressing their political views, for being political, but the church by itself instructs and illuminates the consciences of the faithful, particularly those involved in political life, so that their actions may serve the promotion of human person and common good. And furthermore, we encourage lay Catholics to actively participate in the democratic order. I do not have to explain. And how do we do this? This is what we do. We enlighten them on the issues. We give them instructions, maybe between lines or over the lines. We try to educate them. We have leaders who can speak about things. We give them their freedom. And the church directly also. As far as the Archdiocese of Thrissur is concerned, we have a magazine, Father May, a monthly magazine which goes to every household. We have 1 lakh families and we print 1,10,000 copies of the Catholic Church. That's called translated. Katholika Sabha we call. In English it's translated at the Catholic Church. And it's a huge liability, I would say. Though we say that we pay for it, it is a huge liability. And it's a huge social, political responsibility of the Archdiocese of Thrissur. When we write something, it is, before it reaches our homes, it's in the press and media. This is how we educate. We had circulars. Last week, you know that we had a circular. Tomorrow we are having the first training on how to include names in the electoral roll. It is being organized by the Archdiocesan Facilitation Center. Representatives are coming from, including Mr. Cheria. Yes? He is coming tomorrow for that training. So the Archbishop has issued a circular in this, because participation in politics is important and the church is aware of. And this is how we do it. And being part of the government service, why this is important? Many people ask, what is the importance of us doing something like this? Why this is important? You must understand, particularly in the context of Kerala, since the Kerala Municipality Act and Kerala Panchayati Raj Act, which came into place way back in 1994, 20 years have passed since then, we do not realize the importance of the local bodies. Particularly Catholics do not understand, have till date not understood the importance of participation in the local bodies. So why the church must be involved in politics? They decide. The local bodies decide. It has become a rule. They are responsible for planning for economic development and social justice. Read this, please, and don't think that this is just in the papers. It is being done, but without the participation of Catholics, without the participation of anybody from the church, Father Vincent. That is irony. This is happening. I am part of it. I am in the Grama Sabha as an officer of the state government. I have to go for the development seminar in the district wise and have to prepare the DPCs. The preparation of the projects, working groups are there in many aspects. In all aspects, education, healthcare, welfare, pensions, everything. There are 10 working groups in Thrissur and every district. The plan document has to be prepared and finalized. It has to be sent to the district planning committee. Who do you think sit there in each of these bodies? Everyone except Catholics. Maybe sometimes I am the only single Catholic who is there, and I am ex officio. I cannot speak. My tongues are tied. I am ex officio. Where are our people's representatives? Where are our people in the Grama Sabha? Father Vincent, do anybody of us go there? No. From the street light to the management of the hospitals and the schools, our schools, The money has been spent there. The schools are owned by us, by our corporate management, or by our local churches. But the decisions are taken by these people sitting there. What is have to happen? Which is the type of uniform they have to wear? Which is the type of food that has to be served to the students? Very sorry. So the question still remains relevant, is relevant. The most relevant question: should the church be involved in politics? And this is politics. This table is politics. At each and every step, even as an ex officio. That is where the question of Catholics in public services becomes important. I'm stopping, Father. You don't have to ring, because I can read your face. The state is administered not at Trivandrum, but at the 990 panchayats, by the 152 block panchayats, etc. About 50%, I would say, of the state plan funds is handled by them. They decide who to give the chicken. They decide who to give the goat kits. They decide how the school should be run. They decide how the hospitals, how much money should be spent on hospitals. They decide whether a dialysis machine should be bought or not. Is that important or not? That's the question. So they decide who gets what, when, and how. I repeat, the politicians decide who gets what, when, and how. And we have many issues. Kerala is geographically divided into three: the upland, the midland, and the lowland. You can see everything there. The upland, what happens with our buffer zone issue, the forest land issue, man-animal conflict, has anything been solved? Nothing will be solved, because there is not a Catholic with a conscience among the politicians. There is a coastland which suffers. They don't have even bread to eat. I'm shattered by their position. There is the arts and science, everything. You know the myth theology which came up. The next myth will be on us. They will touch us next, with Virgin Mary being a myth. Though Dr. Peter may not understand, what is this happening in Manipur? Why are you and me here in this hall? I wonder. Do you know the agony of a woman who is defrocked, to say in good words, raped, walked along without any clothes on? She must be mad now. She must have lost her wits. 100%. She cannot live anymore. And she is also Indian. And the Lord gives strength to His people. The Lord has to bless His people with peace. Thank you. And that is why church should be there in politics. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mary Regina, for your thought-provoking and eye-opening statements by quoting even from Katholika Sabha and also other church documents. May I tell you one thing? Yesterday your husband James was here for taking class to our philosophy students, and he has said in public that I have given her full freedom. That is to say, not only to appear before the church forums, rather at the time after the retirement you can enter into the politics. The whole archdiocese will stand before you and behind you, giving the full support. Now the forum is left to you. You can ask questions or ask for any clarification or interventions if you have.
I will clarify first, Father. Vincent's statement about what my husband said. Yes, he has given me full freedom. He's in Chennai right now, setting up home for one of our sons, and I'm here talking to you about politics. That is the way he helps out. So it is the role reversed in our household. That is one thing. But Father Vincent, I think I would confine myself to the walls of the church because my tongue and my attitudes are non-compromising, and that is not good for a politician.
Now you can make your interventions. Yoshithan? Okay. Very good, Chako.
Yeah, very good and inspiring and motivating talk, the presentation. So you said the Catholic Christians are not attending Grama Sabhas. What may be the reason? We in the churches also, the parishes, we inform people to participate in Grama Sabha and inquire about various scholarships, but people are not going. I don't know what is the reason.
Can I be frank and truthful, Father? Because we are rich. We are not needy. The needy goes there. And the social service of the church need to be the policies of the social service of the church need to be changed. When one of us do not have something, particularly like in maybe in Thrissur Archdiocese, maybe not in some coastal dioceses like Trivandrum where they cannot afford to have it, but otherwise what do? We gather the resources, we pass it on. That's not the way things should be anymore. The resources are outside. And we have to look into the fringes. What happened in Aluva for the little girl? I was thinking that if our social service system gave that mother 5 goats and 10 chicks and asked her and trained her to sit at home and look after her kids and the goat kids, she would have survived. Her mother and father were forced. So our social service, the eyes of the social service, and Father Mayatil, you were very close to that. The seminary is very close to that scenario. Like we have our migrant laborers here, not ourselves. So why do we have to go to the Grama Sabha? Maybe not to speak for us, but to speak for them also. Our responsibility is not for me and my husband and my children. My responsibility is to the society, as the church teaches us. So things are different now. We have to think in a different angle from the perspective, like it's not for us, but for all.
Few words on IFC. Can you add a few words on IFC?
AFC. Okay. We have an Archdiocesan Facilitation Center in the Archdiocese of Thrissur, who sends out, it comes notices to your notifications to all your WhatsApp groups regarding public, like whatever can we extract from the state, whatever scholarships, schemes, projects, welfare schemes that comes up. The notifications are prepared in short. The associated web links are given. Some have asked me, you have not given the details. Of course, we can enter into the details. Any parishioner, at least half of the parishioner know how to enter into a website now. So why don't we help the others, the other half who doesn't know? So we send it out. It is like in a local language, it is like a help desk. But a virtual world has been created. A central facility is very strong now. We have created it. We have helped the nuns get their ration cards, the priests get their ration cards, all for the priests also. But do you buy the ration? Sure? Yeah. But Andrew Tamar has not got the ration because he has to go by himself. He can give her an authority letter, like a power of attorney for someone else to get the ration. I had asked him to give me, but he had not given to date. So you must inspire him to get the ration, because it was a tough job. Our youth had sat day in, day out for almost a week to get ration cards for all the priests, nuns and all those, anybody who didn't have a ration card. Now there's started, like he has started one in his parish at Cherur, I think. Yes, sir? View. so that they'll be available to help those. There are still people who are not very rich, Father Chaco, though I said so, who richness means in many aspects there are needy people, so they'll help them to avail the welfare schemes put forth by the government. So that is the AFC. At the center it is very well established. It's all started from Parok because we held the assembly here. We're starting to get opinions from the each household or each person. Parok found it out like for the assembly. It was presented that a common help desk has to be needed, and that was formed. Now it is, we are trying to take it to every parish. So I request each of the youth at least here to have it. How many of you have in your parishes? Can you raise your hands? He has, though he is not a youth anymore, a youth in mind rather than in age. So look at all the youth here. Oh, none of them are raising hands. Very bad. I think it's time to conclude because I cannot answer any more questions. Father Joshi.
Now, what should we do as church to promote politicians with Christian conscience? As you said, church should intervene, of course. Practically, what are there in your mind? What all things should we do for fostering politicians from among us?
Father, we have enough pious associations as well as communal associations like the Catholic Congress, the family units, very strong in Kerala, at least in Kerala. And we have identified leaders. There are many leaders. Like in Thrissur, the issue is having a multitude of leaders, and to get one, extract one and make him the top is the difficulty. Isn't that so, Father? Yes. So we have identified leaders in the grassroots level. So the clergy, being the church leaders, whatever we say that the laity is 99%, they are the church, still you are the leaders in each parish. I would say that it is your responsibility to bring together them, whatever may be their political aspirations or inclinations. Bring our leaders together, give them informal trainings to speak, to write, maybe on issues, or people like Dr. K.M. Francis can speak to them in substance about what should be or what is the church teaching about a particular issue, or when issues come, so that they'll also begin to learn by themselves, to read by themselves and get themselves equipped. So one is equipping them in public speaking, public writing, public behavior, as well as equipping them with subject matter. And then it is party politics finally which decides who gets the final berth in politics or elections maybe. Let one of them come up, let us support, and then we must not, that teaching must be there, whoever it is, our people. If two of our people come face to face, let the best come up. In politics and in elections and in competitions, it's only a competition. Let there be healthy competitions between our people. So we have identified, I would say, again our leaders, but they must be given. Now there is one more year for the local self-government election. And this circular and this havoc has been created purposefully. I am part of that like decision making, purposefully, so that we become politically alert once again. Because it's not the parliament elections. Of course it is important, very, very important, as you all have been discussing. But as part of the local government, I'm saying that local self-governments are even more important. Let us train our, particularly ladies, 50%. So the ladies and the gents, let them compete. What is the problem? And let the best come out. And when the best come out, call them again. After the election results come out, let us train them again. At least call them, be friendly with them, talk to them. The parish priest is the link with the local leaders. Yes, madam. 50% reservation.
I liked your session because this is like a practical session so that we can implement from our side what all things we have learned from this session. We can start implementing from our own houses. So sometimes I have felt like politics is dragging church activities into discussions. Like they make news out of church activities. It's like if some circular is being sent to parishes, it is becoming the headline of next day newspaper. Also, if we make some conferences, they take out the very, confidential matter out of the conference and make a publicity in media. Also, I have seen like if something happens in church, they are making it evening discussions in media. So is it because we don't have a correct politics to stop these activities, or they purposefully dragging us into these things? Because I have seen this only with Christians. They are not into other religions. So what is your opinion about this point of view?
I am proud of this situation because I don't see it in a negative way. Why are they discussing? Why are they spending crores of money in one hour? All the channels together. Father Mayatil, how many crores for 1 hour? Many crores. Because 1 second advertisement in these channels of 1 second, you know. So we are getting advertisement, let alone the other negative parts. Why? Why is the church being discussed? There is nothing confidential anymore when the mobiles have cameras and recording devices. So don't think that anything you speak is confidential anymore. Even inside our houses, they can trap us, they are trapping us. So no, nothing is confidential. Why are they doing it? Because they are frightened of the church. The church is a moral police. We give values to the thousands and millions of children who pass through our educational institutions, and they need, somebody need to destroy our church. That is why they are so interested in our activities. I am proud of my church being discussed because I view it as the strength of the church in the present scenario. Being 18%, as you said rightly, nobody else is being discussed. The 18% is being discussed means we are strong. Let us not decrease our strength by fights within ourselves. Thank you. That's the final word.
Okay, as the time is over, let's put our hands together as a sign of appreciation. And however, I would request you, madam, let this seed remain in you. Namely, at the proper and right time, you can enter into the politics by becoming a very strong, powerful voice of the Archdiocese, for which we wish you all the support and wish you all the best also. Thank you.
At the outset, we'd like to thank Reverend Dr. Vincent Alapat for moderating this session. Thank you, Father. Finally, we have come to the concluding session of the 16th MEPC conference. This 16th MEPC conference was molded into reality with the strenuous efforts of Reverend Dr. Bilju Varapalli, the Secretary of MEPC, and Reverend Dr. Robi Kunthanil, the Coordinator of 16th MEPC. Now, I cordially invite Reverend Dr. Bilju Varapalli to give away the concluding remarks.
Good afternoon to all of you. Respected speakers and the participants of the MEPC 16th conference. As per the schedule, His Grace Mar Andrews III, Metropolitan Archbishop of Thrissur, has agreed to present the concluding remarks of this conference, since His Grace has to participate in an urgent meeting in CBSI conference. So I am forced to do this responsibility. We are at the end of this conference. This year, we have chosen the theme Interface of Church and Politics in India Today, Theological and Pastoral Reflections. In the context of current political scenario in India and Kerala, church intervention in politics, need of policy making irrespective of faith traditions in India, increasing attacks against Christians in India, especially in Manipur, and the Silver Jubilee year of Marymatha Major Seminary. We have conducted this conference with three main purposes. Firstly, to explore the means to live faith and articulate theology in public space. Secondly, to learn how to theologize in the political situations in India, especially in Kerala. And thirdly, to understand how theology takes seriously the socio-political realities in a given situation and thereby facilitates better social political practices in the church and in the society as well. To achieve these goals, throughout this day, we, the theologians, the scholars, the responsible in the pastoral fields, and the students of theological and philosophical studies were being together making a thorough analysis of the current political scenario in India, especially in Kerala. And in so doing, we could list a few theological and pastoral considerations of the church to be adequately responded. To this effect, Professor Dr. Peter Dimay explained how the abuse crisis in the church becomes an invitation to revise our traditional theological convictions. Reverend Dr. Joshi Mayatil explicated to us what are the biblical and ecclesial foundations of Christian politics. Meanwhile, Reverend Dr. Sindo Porathur clarified the age-old tension between the sacred and the profane from a philosophical, theological perspectives. Reverend Dr. Tom Olikarot described what are the challenges and prospects while the church interacting with the politics in India. At the same time, Professor K.M. Francis introduced us new methodology to dismantle the role of the church today in policy making of India. The last speaker of the conference, Professor Mary Regina Francis, discussed the perennial question, should the church be involved in politics? With those scholarly inputs, we are all illumined in our hearts, in our minds. I wholeheartedly congratulate all the speakers for their scholarly contributions to the symposium in order to put forward relevant strategy of a learning process in which each researcher studies the relationship between church and politics today. Dear participants, we might have witnessed the myriad forms of misusing the text and dogmas in different religions for vested interests throughout the centuries. We might have also heard many deliberations on the politicization of the revealed text and doctrines of the church to gain political, social, and economic mileage in various realms of our country. We might have encountered some doctrinal controversies that happen in the church on account of the political or economic interests of the agents involved in. At this juncture, a careful inquiry is inevitable to reveal the interface of the church and state, the sacred and profane, theology and politics today. From a biblical point of view, understanding Jesus, in fact, depends on the different worldviews of persons, groups, even nations and continents, along with their social context. We have to answer to the question raised by many, whether Jesus' involvement described in the Gospels was political, social, religious, or spiritual, or all of them together. I would say, for instance, some scriptural scholars interpreted the scriptural injunction of giving to Caesar and giving to God. We come across in Mark chapter 12, 17, Matthew 22:21 and Luke 20:24. As per the views of the scriptural scholars, Jesus' pronouncement is not a nuanced treatise on church-state relations or on the civil duties of the Christian. Rather, it is an aphorism that teaches the mind to remember that one's duty to God exceeds all other duties. To say more emphatically, Jesus' reply made it clear that in his view, the antithesis was false. Political and divine authority need not necessarily conflict. The payment of tax is a legitimate obligation within the network of human relationships. As such, it did not conflict with the higher and all-embracing authority of God. To pose Caesar and God as mutually exclusive authorities is to make all human relationships antithetical to divine authority. I would say Jesus did not sanction such an either-or. One of the highlights of this conference is that this conference also made us aware of the fact that political engagement by the religious leaders is not fresh in the history. There had ever been politically minded religious heads and religiously minded political leaders who were misusing the revealed text, doctrines, and symbols to gather a wide support among the ordinary public for their political interest. For instance, in the Hebraic literature, there are so many instances where leaders of Israelites who overtly exerted influence upon the political life. There often we come across with winners' stories. To the exegetes, in many such cases, it is not clear whether those canons really translate God's prophetic will. At times, their claims are constructs of a powerful group that needed a sacred history in order to authenticate their political goals. At this juncture, we may opt for a political system as a persistent pattern of human relationships that involve power, rule, and authority. Or we may embrace politics which is considered as the striving to share power or the striving to influence the distribution of power either among states or among groups within a state. I would say, invariably, all the aforementioned definitions of politics are focused on power, and this is because the very raison d'etre of politics is the acquisition and management of authority. Many of the values for which people strive, power, prestige, and possessions, are in scarce supply. If each individual tries to acquire them in his or her own way, then the social life would become impossible. Another observation is that this conference might have guided us as well as the people who are interested in the political situations in India, recognizing how the church in India involves in those matters. In this regard, we are also reminded that a church that wants to take the dialogue with the world seriously must take into account the naturally changing circumstances of the matters treated, and thus must dialogue with the world as this world is today. In this regard, the church documents such as Nostra Aetate, Dignitatis Humanae, and Gaudium et Spes are still relevant, insofar as they are the result of the acceptance. Such understanding will help us to dream for a church called to be the salt of the earth and the light of the world. Matthew chapter 5, 13, 14. Let us dream for a church which ought to live faith and articulate theology in public space. Moreover, let us dream for a doing of theology which needs to take seriously the socio-political situations in the country and which facilitates better social practices in the church and the society. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Father, for your valuable insights. I call upon Reverend Dr. Robi Kundanil, the coordinator of 16th MEPC, to propose a vote of thanks.
Dear respected speakers of the day, moderators, Reverend Fathers, and respected participants of this symposium, a warm good evening to all of you. Thank you is such a prayer that cannot be seen or touched. It must be felt by heart. I deem it a great privilege and honor to propose the vote of thanks on behalf of the organizing committee of 16th MEPC Scholars Conference. First and foremost, we bow our heads before Almighty God for making today's event a grand success. By His blessings and grace, we are able to make the symposium what it was. Words are not enough to thank Matoni Nilangavil, the auxiliary bishop of the Archdiocese of Thrissur and vice chairman of Marymatha Major Seminary, for his constant support and guidance for all the activities of the seminary. Today, he enriched and motivated us by his presence and words of inaugural address. We thank His Excellency most sincerely for his concern and support. A special mention of gratitude goes to our beloved rector, Reverend Dr. Sebastian Chalakal, whose paternal care and support always inspires us to do our best. With deep sense of appreciation, we thank our beloved rector for your welcome words and constant guidance. We would like to express our sincere thanks to all the honorable speakers who enriched and enlightened the MEPC Symposium of the Jubilee year through their scholarly presentation of well-researched papers on the topic Interface between Politics and Church Today in India, Theological and Pastoral Reflections. We are enriched today with the exemplary presentations of the distinguished scholars, Professor Dr. Peter Deme, Reverend Dr. Joshi Mayachil, Reverend Dr. Sindo Porathol, Reverend Dr. Tom Olikarot, Professor Dr. K.M. Francis, and Professor Dr. Mary Regina Francis. Your excellent presentations on the given topics really inspired us all. On behalf of the seminary community and all who are present here, we extend our heartfelt thanks to each one of you. At this moment, we remember with the utmost gratitude our erudite moderators who guided us in the discussions followed. Dear Reverend Father Saijo Taikatil, Reverend Dr. Saji Kanayangal, Reverend Dr. Chako Chiromel, and Reverend Dr. Vincent Alapat, your presence and intellectual support really motivated us. We thank you most sincerely for your presence and support. Vote of thanks will be incomplete without remembering you, the participants of today's symposium. It is your most delighted participation which made the success of this scholars conference. We express our sincere gratitude to all the participants who reserve your precious time to make this symposium fruitful. We remember with gratitude the entire staff and students of Marymatha Major Seminary for their timely help and support. We also extend our sincere thanks to the BA students of the Institute of Theology, especially Reverend Dr. Lijo Chalisheri, the Dean of the Institute, and the entire Paroch team who played their part for the success of this symposium. A symposium of this dimension cannot happen overnight. The wheels start rolling months in advance. We have been fortunate enough to be backed up by a team of very motivated and dedicated team headed by Reverend Dr. Bilju Varapalli, the secretary of MEPC Symposium, and who also delivered the exemplary concluding remarks on today's Scholars Conference. A team of committed students, Brother Acton Pelisheri, Brother Gismon Chamanur, and Brother Prince Arugakal, brothers in charge of media, computer, electrical works, and Brother Albin Vetugatil, the anchor of the day, worked hard with Father Bilju to make this event a grand success. We remember with gratitude all of you for your commitment and hard work. With these sentiments of gratitude, we remember you all and thank you all for your participation in this symposium and your role that you played for the successful completion of this symposium. Thank you.
Thank you, Father, and we also remember you with gratitude. To formally conclude today's symposium, I invite the seminary choir, and let's all rise for the seminary anthem.
ഉയർന്നൊരു മോഹത്താരമേ, യേശുവിൻ ഹൃദയം സ്വപ്നം കണ്ടോരോ മൽപൈതലേ, ശിരസിൽ താരകിരീടവുമായി ഉയരുകവാനിൽ അംബികയെ, മേരി മാതേ നിൻ തനയ പാടും മംഗളഗീതങ്ങൾ അജപാലകനാവേശോത്തൻ തിരുഹൃദയം സ്വന്തമാക്കാൻ, മാർത്തോമാതൻ പ്രേഷിത വഴിയിൽ വളരും വൈദികരാകാൻ. വചനത്തിൻ വിത്തുകൾ പാകാൻ, മണ്ണിൽ സ്വർഗം പണിയാൻ, സ്നേഹത്തിൻ തേൻ മലരുകൾ വിരിയും പുതിയ കുടുംബമാകാൻ, യേശുവിൻ ഹൃദയമിടിപ്പുകളാവുക നമ്മൾ, യേശുവിൻ സ്വപ്ന പുരോഹിതരാവുക നമ്മൾ, യേശുവിൻ ഹൃദയമിടിപ്പുകളാവുക നമ്മൾ, യേശുവിൻ സ്വപ്ന പുരോഹിതരാവുക നമ്മൾ.
Once again, thank you all and wish you all the blessings of today. We have tea arranged in the Father's refectory. Thank you.